Happy Wednesday. Hope everybody's enjoying the week. It is hump day. Everybody remember that commercial, the Mike, hump day. So it is Wednesday. I am excited. I'm pumped to be here. It's going to be a good day. So I want to share real quick just some tips on wealth. It is Wealth Wednesday after all. And I want to talk about, because I get asked about this all the time, what debt do we pay off first? So I get a lot of people that are like, let's focus on the mortgage because it's the biggest debt we have. That's not right. So this is very simple. Don't overcomplicate this. All right. So the first debt that you pay off, all right, is you pay off anything impacting your credit score. Collections and credit cards with high balances. Okay. Now the reason that we're paying these off first is because if an emergency happens, these things impacting your credit score are going to impact the financing that you get going forward. Okay, so your credit score being a 680 versus your credit score being a 780, if your car dies, that's an extreme difference in the interest rate that you're going to see and the monthly payment that you're going to see. So you want to make sure anything that's impacting your credit, we got to make sure your credit's in a place where you can get financing should you need it. This is why a lot of people get messed up, is because they think, okay, we're going to pay off debt and we're just going to focus on the biggest things. Well, the reality is that you may have to accumulate more debt. Although we don't want to, sometimes financially, we just get into a situation where we have to. So I'm a big fan of being completely prepared. So you need really good credit. So collections, credit cards with high balances, those you're going to pay off first. The second thing that you're going to pay off is any debt that is not tied to an asset. So any unsecured debt. Now the reason we're going to pay this off is because should something happen, you lose a job, something tragic happens, whatever, this debt, there is almost no way for you to pay it off. It's not tied to anything. Okay, if you have a car loan tied to a car, at the very least, you can sell that car and pay off the loan. So you want to pay off any debt not tied to an asset, because we talk about if you're being underwater with a car loan, something like that. You want to make sure, okay, if I don't have this isn't tied to anything. What happens when it doesn't get paid? What happens if I can't pay it? So those are things that you have to pay off next. Any asset or any debt not tied to an asset. Third thing we're going to pay off is any debt that has an adjustable rate. You don't want debt that has a rate that you can't control. Now there's obviously some excuses to this. Back like 10, 12 years ago, where adjustable rate mortgages were very popular. They're not anymore for a very good reason. But back then, sometimes they actually made sense. So that wouldn't necessarily be something that you would want to pay off quick. But if you've got any sort of like in-house car loan that you got with a bank because you couldn't get anything anywhere else or something like that, that gets paid off right now. You don't want to have adjustable rates or you don't have any control over it. The rate's one thing the first year, then the second year it jumps way up. The fourth thing we're going to pay off is any debt that is not tied to an appreciating asset. Okay, now this is different than number two. So number two, there's no asset at all. Okay. Number four, anything that's not tied to an appreciating asset. This is where cars come into play. Okay, so we'll pay off cars first because it is an asset after all, and it can use to at least help knock down the debt should something happen. But at this point, we don't want to be underwater with anything. We don't want to be in a position where if something happens, like if that car wrecks, for instance, now all of a sudden we're out of money. We're going to have to pay out of pocket just to solve for that, right? So we want to make sure that we're paying off any debt that's not tied to an appreciating asset. So that's going to be your car loans, different things like that. Number five, we're going to pay off anything that's impacting your ability to invest. Okay, so if there's anything that's impacting your ability to put more into an IRA or mutual funds or stock markets or anything like that, those things then get paid off. Because ultimately, we don't just want to bring you out of debt. That's good, right? But we want you to be saving and we want you to be investing. And it's so important. A lot of people think, well, I'm going to get out of debt and just pour money into my savings account. Well, that's fine. The problem, though, is that you're saving money right now, money that you're going to need to use in several years from now when you retire. Well, when you retire, guess what has kicked in? You may not retire for 20 years. Inflation. So things are going to cost more 10, 15, 20 years from now than what they do right now. So you can't just pour everything into savings. So we got to make sure we get to a point where we're not having to make so many monthly payments, and we can take that money and invest it into some different investing accounts. So anything that's prohibiting your ability to do that, that gets paid off. And then the very last thing, and if you're under the age of like 55, this is almost optional, your mortgage. In all honesty, especially with the way interest rates are right now and with the way the market is, there's no reason to be paying off a mortgage early if you're under the age of 55. A lot of people my age are like, well, I want to be debt free. Well, there's good debt and then there's bad debt. If you have only a mortgage, you're not really in debt per se. You're managing debt, and that's a totally different thing. So with the mortgage, the reason you wouldn't want to prepay a mortgage is because A, it's an appreciating asset. Okay, so that mortgage is going to continue to go up in value. So you pay, or the value of the home is going to continue to go up. So if you pay down that mortgage, well, you're not really necessarily investing. Okay, but what you could do is if you have extra money, pour that money into a retirement account, into an investment account. Now, once you hit age 55, you do want to start paying down that mortgage, and you do want to get to a point, because you're again starting to prepare for retirement. So you do want to get to a point where you don't have anything else hanging over your head, and you can get rid of that, and then you can start preparing your estate and everything else for when you do retire. But if you're under the age of 55, there's no reason at all to be paying off that mortgage. So if y'all have any questions at all, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great Wednesday.